it's been revealed here that the BBC have failed to declare in interviewees links to the Israeli army. We're going to read into this more from Open Democracy to get a better understanding of what this is all about. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is REGANELITE here with an article from Open Democracy with the headline that it's been revealed that the BBC failed to declare the interviewees' links to the Israeli army. Newsnight military expert Richard Kemp is the head of a charity funded by the Israeli Defense Force. Now, whenever someone is speaking on national television, it's very important, and I'm sure you guys will agree with me, that whoever is speaking that we know, like, not just who their name is, but who they're working for, just to get a bit of a context of the person who is giving their views on television. And it's right that people know that. We've seen in over the years now a lot, especially on the BBC, I will say, those working for certain think tanks, giving their views and opinions, and not actually knowing who those think tanks are actually funded by. We've seen them on Question Time, and we're sure they've been on Newsnight, as well as other news places as well, such as Sky and maybe even Channel 4, but being actual, not knowing all the context behind the person that's coming on there. Now, normally, if you're just told there's a headline under it, and I'm just going to scroll down a little bit just for you guys to see. So there, it says then, Colonel Richard Kemp, Joint Intelligence Committee member, 2002-2007. Okay, so he sounds like an important person. I should listen to what he says. That's how it comes across. Yeah, if you're a regular who watches Newsnight, that's how it'll come across. It'll come across understandably. It's like, okay, he sounds like he's someone very, comes across as something very, Joint Intelligence Committee. You're not really thinking too much into it. You're not really thinking that deep into it, to the mindset. But when you see that, it's just like, okay, this sounds like a serious person, so I should take his opinion seriously. The fact that he has this not declaring the interviewees' links to the Israeli army on something as serious as that then raises the questions. Okay, well, why? If you're talking about that topic, excuse me, and my presumption is that's the topic they're talking about, you kind of want to know that he has links to the Israeli army, because then you'll know, okay, he has more of a biased opinion as opposed to being unbiased and trying to be a neutral point of view as opposed to a one-sided of the argument. And if they come across, and you can tell obviously from that if they're not told, if the viewers aren't told that, then their opinion could be swayed to think differently to what they should be thinking, as opposed to basically the terms of being given a fair assessment of what's happening there by somebody who is showing a bias towards a certain side, but they're not actually showing that person who is conducting an interview or talking to the TV, you don't actually see that they are actually a biased perspective, because you're not being told that. So it's just planting seeds into your mind of changing your views. And there's a little thing I always like to tell people, which is really important, is that whatever you read, whatever you watch, whatever you hear online in particular, especially online, always take it with a pinch of salt, including my channel. Always take everything you read and hear in that with a pinch of salt. Never take everything 100% seriously. The one thing that is more truthful is what you see with your eyes, what you smell with your nose, what you hear with your ears in person is more real than anything that you will see on the screen that you are watching right now. And that's very important context to always take into account, guys. No matter how left-wing, right-wing, whatever papers there are, no matter how trustworthy they are, you should always take things with a certain degree of salt. So, the BBC Newsnight failed to declare that a military expert it presented as an independent commissioner is a director of a charity bankrolled by the Israeli army. Appearing on the BBC flagship daily news and current affairs programme last week to discuss the war in Gaza and pro-Palestine marches in the UK, Colonel Richard Kemp was introduced as a former army officer and terrorism expert who sat on the government's Joint Intelligence Committee. But what host Kirsty Wark did not mention is that Kemp is also a director of a trustee of an organisation that both raises money for and is funded by the Israeli Defence Force, the IDF. The findings were made by Action on Armed Violence, the AOAV, a London-based charity that records, investigates and disassembles evidence of armed violence against civilians worldwide. So according to Open Democracy here, and the findings by Action on Armed Violence is that they're saying that he actually works in joint with the Israeli Defence Force here, but not directly, but links to them basically is what they're saying here. AOAV, I'm trying to say that, has uncovered at least 80 articles in national and international news outlets from the Daily Telegraph to Newsweek and the Daily Mail that have cited Kemp's opinions on the unfurling horror of Gaza and Israel in the past month. None has mentioned his role as the head of the UK Friends of the Association of the Wellbeing of Israeli Soldiers, the UK AWAS, the UK branch of AWAS, an Israeli organisation managed by the IDF and headed by the General Yoram Yar. So he's apparently at that as well, allegedly, is what they're stating as well. So there's two reasons why his opinions are not unbiased. The UK AWAS, the charity part run by Kemp, appears to blur the lines between raising money for individual soldiers' welfare and for the IDF's institutional benefit. Its mission is to relieve the need and suffering of servicing and discharged Israeli soldiers and their family, as well as supporting their education and providing recreation facilities, according to the document filed to the Charity Commission, which regulates charities in England and Wales. People visiting the UK AWAS website can make donations for various welfare items for current and former combat soldiers, including the construction of gyms and provisions of scholarships. But potential donors are also given the option to contribute to an IDF wish list of core medical equipment, including ventilators, ambulances, field hospital tents, and machines to monitor the heart. Other donations include adopt an IDF combat unit, £75,000, or contribute to the IDF Enlistment Festival, £140,000. So this is another way of Israel raising money. They're using that stinks of dodginess. That does a little bit. Really does smell of stinks like it's perhaps it's not as charitable as it appears. The UK AWAS states that its income comes from donations, legacies and grants, but the Israeli branch of the AWAS confirmed to the AOAV that Israel's Ministry of Defence pays for all of its overheads, including those of the UK AWAS, as they are basically our fellow organisation. This means that the UK AWAS receives more money from the IDF than it gives back in donations. Now, a spokesperson for the BBC told the AOVA that Colonel Richard Kemp was invited on to talk on Newsnight about security concerns in the UK. Although the discussion wasn't directly about the conflict in Israel and Gaza, it took place within the context that, as such, we should have made his connections with Israel clear in the interview. The BBC did not wish to comment on whether its booking process would be reviewed in light of the revelations or whether it would issue a correction. So they are aware, the BBC here, the spokesperson has said that they're aware of the connection. But they weren't directly talking about the conflict. Now, I haven't watched the interview as of the time of this recording, but I will go back and have a look at the interview just to see. But that still doesn't change the fact that the people should have had a right to know that. Now, a closer look at the UK's AWAS accounts. Just 47%, that's £138,000, of the UK's AWAS expenditure went towards the stated charitable purpose in the year to 31st of March 2022, with the remaining 53% being spent on governance and fundraising. For comparison, in the same year, The British Red Cross spent 27% of its expenditure on equivalent fundraising and governance costs, and cancer research spent 28.5%. Many smaller charities spent much less. The Friends of the Aryan Orthodox Hospital for Children in Jerusalem, another UK-based charity raising funds for partner charities in Israel, spent 1.5% of its total expenditure on governance and support costs. Of the money, the UK AWS did spend on charitable services in the year to March 2022, 1,110, 202 was given directly to AWS in Israel given to AWIS in Israel. 11,620 to scholarships and to former IDF combat soldiers, and 16,930 in unspecified consultancy fees. It's always a middleman to pay, isn't there, in these things? A further 33,000, nearly 34,000 there, was spent on consultancy as part of its expenditure on fundraising activities. There was no information identifying the consultancy's pay, nor who benefited from the £8,974 that AWAS spent on hotels and travel. The organisation's annual trustee report and financial statement declared that the directors and trustees did not receive any financial remuneration for their money. More than £50,000, 17% of the annual expenditure, was paid to an honorary president. There is no information identifying the consultancies benefiting from the £33,859 of the UK AWIS governance funds, or who benefits from the £8,974 spent on hotel and travel. Why? The UK AWIS ended the year with £464,000 unrestricted funds in the bank, and charity commissions previously recommend that UK charities have between 3 to 6 months running costs in their revenue. Though this is not a legal requirement, based on its governance and support costs last year, UK AWIS holds 5 years' worth of reserves. There is no suggestion that Kemp, UKWIS or AWIS have done anything illegal. None have responded to requests for comments. They haven't done anything wrong within the law from the looks of it there. However, that's not to say that it doesn't sit right with me. It feels to me that we are being, in a way, conned legally, because it seems to me that they've looked at the law around these charities and how they can bend them to their benefit. When I look at those numbers, that's how it comes across to me. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you guys can correct me in the comment section down below. But on Richard Kemp himself there, I would just obviously say it's not the first time that the BBC have not been very clear about the people that they bring on to their programming, because they are still one of the biggest, and they are still the most popular state. They are the popular state broadcaster they're an institution that everybody does, that a lot of people look to. And don't get me wrong, I don't watch the BBC almost not as much as I used to, and people take what they say face value. And if a government can control the vast majority of what comes through there, it can really persuade the public in their favour. And they need to remain anonymous and unbiased from the Conservatives. And obviously, obviously I'm not going to talk about Israel and Gaza in particular, because it is a sensitive situation as it is. But if you're going to have anyone talking anything of any relevance to it, make sure that people are clear about who's coming on and who they represent, because it's not fair on those watching it. But what do you guys think? Do you think that Richard Kemp should have mentioned that he had ties to the Israeli Defence Force? What do you think about some of these charities and incomes that they are getting as well? Is it about time that we need reform on charities and the way that people were able to set them up? Perhaps they need questions too. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Hit the like button, be greatly appreciated. Share across social media, and if you hit the bell notification icon, you'll be notified of when I go live. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.